Hello and welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast, where we talk about the fight or fights that so many of us engage in this lifetime, as well as ways to help alleviate those fights. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Let's get started. Welcome to When I Stop Fighting, the podcast. My name is Daryl Dittmer. Today I'm joined by Oliver Goulet, a goal-oriented, driven personal coach and consultant, entrepreneur, host of the very successful Fresh Hope for a Better You podcast, and a guy who has overcome addiction. Thanks so much for joining me, Oliver. So great to have you on.
Thank you, Daryl. It's a wonderful opportunity to come on and be able to provide as much value as we possibly can. And I just say how grateful I am to have this opportunity to have a wonderful conversation with you, and I'm excited for it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. I know we've had a chance to talk. I've done your podcast, which was really cool. You know, we had a great conversation and definitely connected in many ways, which I think is great. And so grateful to have you on. And I guess to get cranked up here, if you wouldn't mind just, sharing a little bit of your story, sort of what brings you or what brought you to just looking for something better in life. And as your podcast talks about, fresh hope for a better you, I think that's a really cool way to put it. What brought you to a fresh hope for a better Oliver?
So it goes back into when I was in college. I was going down the wrong path that I was kind of formed into by all these external things that constantly were manipulating my train of thoughts and telling me what I should be doing with my life, when truthfully I hadn't put enough time, effort, and energy into it. And after my second year at Hope College, I had some issues with one of my roommates, and we had gotten into an altercation due to guys just being guys, which ended up with me having to go to court, ending up beating an assault case. And then it really put me in a position where I felt like I was no longer in a place where I was welcomed and wanted to be, which then after the altercation, I had to go to court. So I had to come up with some money for my lawyer fees and stuff like that. And because I come from a middle-class family, my parents told me, they said, "Hey, you got yourself into this mess. I'm not paying for it. You're going to have to pay for it," which ultimately led me to selling cannabis because I was a big partier back in the day. I had partied my ass off. I was voted the high school class partier and all these other things. And one thing I was always involved with was cannabis. And so I started selling cannabis, ended up paying off my fees. And then I just kept selling cannabis because I saw how much money was in it. And at the time it was illegal, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was not the right way to go about it. But over the next year or so, I realized that instead of just buying cannabis and reselling it to all my friends and stuff like that, I could learn a skill and I could actually start growing cannabis. So then I decided to start growing cannabis. I eventually got legal, and which ultimately led me to starting my cannabis company. But along with what came with that is, when you're making a bunch of money as a 19, 20-year-old and you're a partier, it tends to lead you down the wrong path. And when I was going down these paths, I started to just say, I'm only going to drink and I'm only going to smoke. But as you continue to go down this path of, doing things the wrong way, operating in illegal ways, you tend to get associated with some not so great people. And these other types of people, they start dabbling with other drugs. So what did I do eventually? Because eventually, like we all know, you start conforming to the people around you. You are the sum of the, 5 people you spend the most time with. And when you're doing this, you really have no control. It doesn't matter how much willpower you have. Eventually, you're going to start conforming to the patterns of these people that you associate with. So which led me down to an addictive route with cocaine, amphetamines, which also led me down the route of selling these hard drugs and just doing them. And after about 2 years of doing this and going through tons of lessons where God was completely slapping me in my face, telling me this isn't the right way to go. Yes, I was doing the cannabis legally because I had gotten licensed, but all this other stuff was illegal, very illegal, which would have put me away for many, many years if I had gotten caught doing it. Thank the Lord for this day, because he had a better future plan for me. And luckily, I came to the conclusion that I didn't need to do that when God, one night, I was laying in my bed all coked out of my mind, and I just had this epiphany or this vision that I was not going to, the vision was me at a funeral. And at this funeral, all my family and friends are there. And I just was like, I didn't understand what it was trying to represent. At the time, I didn't know whose funeral it was. But then this one person in particular stuck out, which was my mother. And my mother was bawling her eyes out, telling me he was too young. And in that moment, I knew that I was at my own funeral, even though I didn't get the opportunity to walk up to the casket and see for myself. I knew that what I was doing with my life on a day-to-day basis, doing the hard drugs and all these things, that is where my life was going. And God showed me a vision where that was going. And after that, I completely stopped and I said, this isn't what I want to do. Yes, I had a couple relapses over the course of that period. But after about 6 months of saying no to that stuff, I was going down to Indiana to spend some time with a friend of mine that I really wanted to just spend quality time with. And he said, hey man, we're going to go out to the bars. And at the time, like, I was still drinking and smoking, but I kicked all the other drugs. And I met this girl at the bar, hit it off with her, all this cool stuff, ended up taking her home that night. And then after that, we were connected on social media, stayed in touch, and she kept reposting this podcast. And at the time, I had no idea what the podcast was. The podcast was called Real AF by Annie Frisella. And I swiped up on her story and I was like, who is this? Why do you keep reposting every day? And she's like, I think this is someone you should listen to. He's an entrepreneurial based show. It's self-development. I think that it would really fit to you. And the first episode, it stuck out to me. It hit me like a brick wall. And I absolutely just dove deeper and deeper into the self-development. And I was like, if I've been able to overcome an amphetamine addiction, a cocaine addiction, a porn addiction, and all these other things, what else can I accomplish? Like, I'm already an entrepreneur with my cannabis company. So how much deeper can I go with it? Which over the last 5 years, I've went from just kind of being in the medical market with my cannabis company to transitioning into the recreational market. That's where we're currently at. And then I also, along that journey, I had lost over 80 pounds because during all that time, I was extremely overweight. I hid from my emotions and all my problems with, binge eating on food, which that was not a great way to deal with my problems and my anxiety and my emotions, was shoving my face full of food. And after I lost that 80 pounds, I was like, man, how great does this feel? How wonderful does it feel to know that I am physically in the best shape of my life? I'm operating off of the values that I've instilled in myself. I've learned from one of the companies I work with, First Form, and all these amazing things. And I just kept diving deeper and deeper down the self-development, quote unquote, rabbit hole, and just continuing to see what else I can get out of this lifetime other than falling for my vices and doing all these other things. And coming from one far end of the spectrum with the addictions and all these other things, and being able to make it through those dark times and all these things to be on the brighter side of things, I've been able to experience how much greater life truly is. And that is where the term, the fresh hope for better you, came from. Because if I can give myself fresh hope by making the changes in my life, everyone else can. I'm just a regular Joe. I'm a regular guy. I love what I love. I'm a family man. And I just continue down that path and trying to share my story to inspire those around me to want to better themselves. And that's what ultimately led me to starting my podcast, starting my coaching. And that's what led me to where I'm currently at today.
Cool, man. As you and I have talked, and I think our stories align to a large degree. And I was young when I got sober too, as you know, and did a lot of the same things and fell into a lot of those same pits, and clawing ourselves out and finding something better is just, it's the coolest thing ever. And I've been doing this for a long time, and you inspire me. You inspire me, and that's a really cool thing. I'm so impressed with what you're doing and how you've taken command of Oliver, in terms of what you're going to do with your life. And one of the things that I thought about when you were talking about friends and the 5 people that you hang out with, and that kind of defines you. And what came into my mind is you lay down with dogs long enough, you're going to get fleas, and that is 100% true. And I had to do the same thing. I had to jettison many, many things from my life. And the other thing that came to mind was, the things that I've learned in my life have not been things that I want. It's been, what do I not want? What do I need to get rid of? What kind of garbage do I need to take out? And I think that's a crucial way to consider, improvement and consider life improvement. But the best thing, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, is that you're spreading it to other people, and you're improving Oliver, and by that alone you're improving the world, but you're also sharing how you do it, and sharing it with others so they can also do it, which I 100% respect. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it goes hand in hand. When I'm trying to inspire and impact people, it makes me hold myself to a higher standard. Because how can I expect anyone else to do what I'm doing if I'm not holding myself to an even higher standard? And a lot of like the whole thing with, catching the fleas and stuff like that is like, even now, if I spend any sort of time around some people that gossip or, they talk shit about others, like I will catch myself like almost falling into that trap. That's how powerful the group of people you associate with and spend your time with is. And I immediately self-audit myself. I'm like, those are not types of people I need to limit my time even more, because that has an impact on you. So for you audience listening, if you can figure out, whether or not your social circle or your friends or your family have a positive influence on you or a negative one, that's something that's been the greatest thing that I've applied to my life, is auditing who I'm giving my time to. Because if those people aren't aligned with what you're currently trying to achieve or what you're working towards, then you need to really limit the time with those people, because they have a tremendous amount of power over you. And you may not think so, but I promise you, it is very, very true. It goes very far with that.
It does. Yeah. I've had this discussion with my sons a ton about, values. Your values have to align, and it's okay. It's okay. Everybody can live their life the way they want to, and that's fine. And it's not a judgment thing. It's just, hey, if our values don't align and we're in, some sort of a relationship, whether it be, an intimate relationship or a business relationship or whatever, if values don't align, it's heading for the dumpster. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And sticking around for that is what makes us not in alignment with ourselves and not in alignment with, whatever higher power, God, whatever it is that we believe in, and the universe and all that sort of thing. We just create that friction, and the friction is what can take us out and wear us down over time.
Yeah, 100%. That's spot on.
I've seen it myself 100 times, honestly, and with family, and family. I love my family, but that does not mean that I have to give everyone in my family time, because there are toxic humans in my family, and it's okay that that's the case. They can do whatever they want to do with their lives, but the decision comes from me, and the decision comes from what do I need to do with my life to be able to align with the values that I deem most important. And I've been doing that for a long time now, but honestly, even going through this stuff, and from being a young person to being where I am now, it's a challenge all the way up. I mean, it's a challenge all the way, and paying attention is absolutely crucial the entire time. So if you're thinking about addiction, and I've seen some of the pictures of you, and when you were 80 pounds heavier, or whatever that was than you are now, and I'm fascinated, and I love the fact that you're rounding out, how you treat yourself. And one of the things that I talk about in my book is treating our body, our mind, our heart, and our soul with the care that they all deserve, because all those parts of us are what make us up. And if we're, I could be doing a lot of things right, but if I'm going to McDonald's 3 times a day, there's a lot wrong, and so those kind of things are really important. And how did you come to the realization that these are the things that you need to attend to in your life? And I say that because you're a young dude, and it's really impressive that you've found this for yourself in your life.
Yeah, so I I just got sick and tired of avoiding all the mirrors, just not being comfortable in my own skin. Like it came to the point where I probably didn't look in myself in a mirror without my shirt on for probably 6, 7 months of my life. And I just got so sick and tired of that. And I mean, I was a very athletic kid, even though I was overweight. I played all sorts of sports my entire life. I played sports in college, and it was just like, okay, well, if the way I look at it was, okay, my fitness is my foundation, my health and wellness, because everything's connected. If your body's out of shape, your mind's going to be suffering, your soul's going to be suffering, everything's going to be suffering if you're neglecting our temple, which God gave us our temple. And so I thought that that was probably the first place I needed to start working on. So I just simply started, exercising. I didn't know much about nutrition. I didn't know like about anything about macronutrients or anything like that. So I just kind of started working out and exercising. I did the simple, I heard, chicken and rice and broccoli. That's basically where I started. And then I realized that after about, 4 or 5 months of doing that it was terrible and I hated chicken and I was so sick and tired of it. And then over the course of that time, like after I'd found Annie Frisella, I kept listening to MFCO Project, found out about 75 Hard. And when I did 75 Hard, it changed my entire life. If you don't know what 75 Hard is, it's a mental toughness program developed by Annie Frisella. It basically, for 75 days, you do 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes. One has to be outdoors, and that's typically what I did my cardio, and I weight trained. And then you have to take a progress picture, drink a gallon of water, read 10 pages of a self-development and non-fictional book, and then you have to follow a diet and no alcohol and cheat meals. And I decided to do that on July 23. I announced that I was going to do it publicly a month before I was going to do it because I wanted accountability. And at the time I was trying to work out and exercise, and like I had a couple friends I'd work out with here and there, but most of the time it was just me working out by myself. And when I decided to do that program, I was like, this is a program. It sounds like it can change my life. And I was fully dedicated to it. For those 75 days, it created the most amount of separation. I lost the most amount of friends. And I found out who I really was over those 75 days because I was not listening to a bunch of other people. I was dedicated to my program and I was dedicated to my work. And that was where I saw the most exponential results when I first started my self-development journey. I lost over 40 pounds during it. And it really gave me the confidence and belief in myself because that was hands down the hardest thing I'd ever done. Coming from someone with a very addictive past background that could never say no to a beer or never say no to a slice of pizza or never even say no to a drug or anything of that nature. And when I finally built up that confidence after 75 days, I was like, I felt like I was unstoppable. And I said, okay, if I was able to kick all of these things and not do any of the things that didn't serve me, that the food I ate that made me feel like crap, what else is there? What else can I accomplish? And that gave me so much confidence within myself and belief that I was no longer going to be the old version of myself. And that's where I had to say goodbye. I remember specifically on day 75, I was doing my last workout, which was an outdoor cardio. I decided to run. And after I run and finished that 45 minutes, I just broke down crying because I thought, how much more can I actually accomplish? If I was able to accomplish this, the hardest thing ever, by beating my vices and addictions and, not allowing food and alcohol or any of those other things to control my life, what else can I do? And me crying was just me saying bye to the old me. And I realized and I made the commitment that I'll never go back to who I once was because of how great I felt. I used to not be able to get myself out of bed. I used to struggle with extreme depression because I was like, all right, even though I'm making good money with my cannabis company, like, what is my purpose? I didn't have a purpose or anything like that. And after completing 75 Hard, it helped me step into my purpose. And I was waking up excited. I was waking up happy. I was waking up actually motivated to do things. And it's because the discipline it instilled in me. Yes, there was days that were harder than others to do the thing, do the task every day. But once you build up that mental toughness and you kind of callous your mind, like, even though my body hurts, I'm still going to work out. And just realizing how much more powerful you are when you let you control your mind compared to letting your mind control you. Because a lot of people make they have this misconception that their mind always has their best interests. Me, I'll tell you, I tell myself and talk to myself more than I allow myself to talk to me. I will overpower that voice in our head because we have two different voices. I like to call it the boss voice and the bitch voice in our head. The boss voice wants us to do what we know we need to do on a daily basis. It helps us move forward, helps us become a better version. And the bitch voice in our head is the one that tells us, oh no, take it easy, don't do that, or it's scary over there, stay in your comfort zone and do all these things. But when you operate out of that, you're operating out of fear. And no one ever becomes great or does anything worthwhile in life when you live a life of fear. We live in a day and age right now where almost everyone operates out of fear. And that's why the world looks the way it does right now, is because people are afraid. And that's something that I'll never be. Yes, I have fears and stuff like that come up every once in a while. But as soon as I step into that fear, it's no longer scary because I've experienced it. And I think a lot of people had a misconception of that. And that's ultimately what 75 Hard did for me. It recalibrated my mind. It gave me a reason to know that I'm worth something compared to what I used to think about myself, because I used to be the hardest person on myself. I used to tell myself I wasn't anything. I could never achieve anything like these great people. But after doing the program, I realized that all these people, they're just humans, just like you and me. And anyone can do whatever they do. Yeah, I may not be able to dunk a basketball. Yeah, I may not be able to run a sub 4-minute mile. Or yeah, I might not be able to compete in the Olympics. But I can compete at a high level in business. I can compete at a high level in anything else I really want to. And that's one of the biggest things that most people don't understand, is like all the people that we look up to and put on pedestals, they're just like you and me. They've just worked really, really hard. Most of the people aren't significantly smart. I'm not crazy smart. Yeah, I'm a pretty smart guy, but I don't have any special, like super special gifts that, I was blessed with. I just work really, really hard. And there may be someone that I go up against in business. They may be smarter than me, but I will outwork you. And that is due to the 75 Hard program.
1% inspiration, 99% perspiration, right? That's one of my favorite sort of lines. And I love that, that story. I had not heard the 75 Hard story. I'd heard about the mentor and the guy that you listened to on the podcast, but I hadn't heard that 75 Hard story. That's really cool. I mean, that's the only thing I think about when you were talking about, and not the only thing, but discipline, right? Like it takes that discipline and that consistency. Those are the two pillars I think of that sort of guard us. Either they guard us or we succumb. And if I'm being consistent and I'm being disciplined, which they breed each other, nothing can stop me. And I truly feel that way. Now it doesn't mean I have to do everything in the world. It doesn't mean I have to drive myself into an early grave by trying to be, this crazy successful dude. I kind of stopped being I didn't stop being a nut job. I've always been a nut job, but I know how to slow myself down. I know how to quiet myself. I know how to quiet my mind, and I think all those things are crucial as we get older, but when we're young, we just go, and you're in that go mode. And I love to see it, because I was in exactly that go mode when I was your age. So what this brings up for me is a lot of people look at addiction and difficulty and, quote unquote failure as, the worst things that can happen to someone. I look at them as they're the most incredible blessing I ever had in my life. Those things. How do you frame that for yourself? How do you frame your past? Is it a blessing or was it a curse?
My past is 100% a blessing. I like to say my addiction is a superpower, because now I've just become addicted to the right things that serve me in life, and anything new that I find that fascinating, I become addicted to doing it, which, God doesn't want us to be addicted to things, but in certain cases, when you have an addictive personality, it can be used to your advantage. And I wouldn't be the man here speaking to you today if I didn't go through all the shit that I did. All the things that I went through, all the tough lessons and learning, like, I'm extremely grateful that happened now compared to if I would have, just started my cannabis company, made buku bucks. And what says 10 years from now when I'm making millions of dollars, that if I would went down that rabbit hole, it could have absolutely crushed me. And I may never have been able to bounce back. But knowing what I know now, I know what path that led me to, and I want nothing to do with that. I'm going to go down this path where I know where it continues to better me. Yes, it may be harder. It's a lot easier to sit back and do drugs and, party my ass off all the time. But does that really serve me and my purpose? Is that what God wants me to do? No. I believe that God truly put me in that position early on in my life because he didn't want to see me crumble when I can actually make the biggest difference in people's lives and the most impact possible later down the road. I think he wanted me to experience that at a younger age, and so that I was able to share my stories, influence others, because the amount of people that I've had conversations with that I've never talked to before from my social media, from my podcast, and all of these things that come to me and say, hey man, I started doing XYZ. I was going down this path and now I'm going down this path because of you. I just want to say thank you. I don't think I could ever repay you. And stuff like that fills my heart. That's why I do what I do at the end of the day. It's not, just to be like, oh, I've done this, I've done that. Is to literally show people that it is possible, because a lot of people struggle with knowing things are possible if they haven't seen or heard anyone do it before. And that's just like the thing, when the first person ever break a 4-minute mile, no one ever thought that was possible. But after one person did it, now thousands of people have done it. And it's just like, okay, if you can see someone else that's done it before you, then that gives you belief in yourself that you can do it yourself. So I would 100% say that my past was a true blessing in my life. It gave me so many different experiences, lessons, and all of these things that I needed to learn at those specific times for me to be right where I'm at right here and right now.
Could not agree more, Oliver. That's really cool, man. I feel that when people believe that it was a blessing to go through all the stuff, and I 100% believe that in my life. There's no doubt about it. There was a guy that I used to listen to. His name was Jack Boland. He was a Unity minister, and out of Warren, Michigan, as a matter of fact. And I used to have his tapes, his cassette tapes, and I'd throw them in my car and I'd listen to them, and I know cassette tapes, right? And I'd read his books. And he said so many wonderful things that helped shape me and change my life. And I've had many of those. I've had mentors that I can sit in front of and talk to, and I've had mentors that have mentored me, via cassette tape and CD and whatever else, right? So anyway, one thing that he used to say was, what man has done, man can do, which exactly is what you're saying about, look, if somebody else can do it, and then I can do it, and providing that inspiration for people. I think that's just a cool thing. And I applaud you for that, in a big way, because that's not what most people think about throughout their entire lives, much less, in the younger part of their lives. So that's a really cool thing. One thing I wanted to ask, and I think it's crucial to understand this. What does success mean for you, and how has your definition of success changed over the course of time?
So when I first started my quote unquote entrepreneurial journey and stuff like that, when I was selling weed back in the day, success was, I could go buy meals, I could pay for friends' meals, I could do what I want when I wanted to a certain extent. But over the past few years, success has really changed in my perspective. Now success to me is freedom. Freedom is to be able to speak what I want to say, do what I want to do in my companies, and impact those around me. If I'm able to impact people's lives on a daily basis, that is success to me. If I can challenge someone's perspective, if I can continuously provide for my family, if I can show up for the people that I love on a daily basis and continuously grow and evolve, that is success. We've all heard it. It's 1% better every single day. And if you can constantly improve 1% every single day, that is how I look at success. Yes, there's times when my day-to-day where I hate it, I don't want to do it, I want to quit, all of these things, but it's all things that I need to be learning. The lessons that continuously come and the failures that I have, those are learning and leading me to greater success in my future. Because my ultimate goal of success right now, my vision is to impact and inspire over a million people. And I'm well on my way from that, because I can tell you I've probably impacted over 100,000 people through my social media, through my podcast and stuff like that. And I'm well on my way. And that's only including the people that I've had personal interactions and stuff like that through social media with. But that doesn't say that doesn't hold back the thing that, if these people are reaching me and it's challenging them, how many people are they challenging and changing themselves? Because it all has a domino effect. So if I continue to operate like that, that's the way I look at success. If I can help inspire those around me, continuously show up and improve and challenge my own perspectives, my beliefs, and just keep shattering those beliefs that I had when I thought that, this was a ceiling, that is what success really looks to me. And just having the freedom to be able to build what I want, do what I want, and help those that really need my help. That is success to me.
Very cool. Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's a great thing. You mentioned a lot of things there, but part of it I think was similar to my definition of success, which has changed immensely over time, but it's waking up in the morning with a smile on my face. And there's a lot of stuff that piles into waking up in the morning with a smile on my face, and it has to do with freedom, and it has, financial freedom, personal freedom, freedom in my, relationships, and all of those things. And that's a really cool thing. So I want one last question, but we're kind of running to the end. But in terms of other people and sort of reaching out, I know you've had a huge effect on people. And what would be one thing that you would tell someone who's scared to move forward, or just have these crippling fears, or they're not sure what to do, or they're not sure which direction to go? What's one thing you would tell them that might help them get over that hump if they're listening to this show?
First off, it's a whole lot scarier until you take that first step. So just taking the first step. But if that doesn't do it for you, imagine yourself on your deathbed. And then when you are going to die and you think about all the things that you wanted to do with your life that you didn't do because you were afraid, how are you going to feel about that? Would you rather go the route of, failing, falling on your face and making a mistake and having the answer that at least you tried? Or would you rather have those regrets at the end of your life, wishing you would have done your life differently? And for me, being a firm believer in God, I don't want to show up to God's doorstep and he go, hey, look at this life that you could have lived if you would have taken these opportunities, if you would have been able to overcome these fears. Look at this life that I wanted you to live, and look at the life you did. I want him to say, hey, look at your life. This is what I wanted you to live. This is the path I wanted you to take, and you took it. Now let's look at all these amazing things that you were able to accomplish. So for you listeners, if there is something holding you back that you're afraid of doing, the worst thing you can do is fail. That's it. But guess what? From that failure is going to come a great lesson that you can learn, and you can learn that lesson to keep it and apply it later on down the road so that you can not make the same mistakes again, and you can keep progressing, because the worst thing that you could ever do is not try. And I see it all the time in everyone, in a lot of people just simply walking down the roads. I can tell the way they hold themselves that there's things that they wish they were doing differently that they're afraid to do. And I don't want that to be for any of these listeners, because I know if you listen to this show that you are someone that wants to become better. So take the risk, take the chance, because the worst thing that can happen is you fail. But guess what? It's all part of the game of life. That is what it is. And I've learned 100 times more from my failures than my wins. So the biggest lessons that you're going to learn in life are from your failures, and you won't ever be able to learn those lessons that you need to if you don't try.
100%, man. I say it all the time, and people see us where we are in life, right? Like, people see me now and they're like, he hasn't had any problems, he's fine. I'm sure everything's gone really smoothly for that dude. Well, no, not really. There's a lot of scars. There's a lot of internal scars. There's a lot of external scars, and that's okay. Like, I love that part of life, because, and I've failed. You said, I've failed probably 100 times for every time that I've succeeded with something. So, and that's just part of the game. I think the only true failure is when we don't get up, if we stay down, and it's all about getting up, because every successful person I know, and I know a lot of successful people, they've all gotten their ass kicked, and they've all gotten their teeth kicked in, and that's just the way it is. And you just got to get up and smile and face the bully, and the bully is fear. Like you said, walk into fear as opposed to turning away from it. Walk into it and take that first step, and you'll be fine. So thank you so much for that wisdom, Oliver. I appreciate that much. And last thing is, how do we find you? How do we find you out there in this vast world of information?
So on all social medias, the one I'm mainly active on is Instagram. It's Oliver _Goulet. 23, and that goes for every social media platform. Also, you can check out the podcast at The Fresh Hope for Better You. That's on Apple and Spotify. And then, yeah, just reach out to me there. I'm the one that runs all my social media. I don't have anyone do it because I like building the personal relationships with others and connecting with them. So if you have any questions or just ever need someone to chat to about addiction, about weight loss, or anything of that nature, don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to have a genuine conversation. I'm not one to judge because, as you guys have heard from this podcast, I've got a pretty messed up background, and I've been through some shit, so I can relate on a lot of levels. So whatever you've been through, I've been through it too. And, we can chat and we can hopefully help you, step into the version of yourself that you want to be.
Very cool. Yeah. Thank you. I'll put all this stuff in the show notes, and anything we've, any way that to get a hold of you, I'll make sure that's all in the show notes so people can find you quickly and easily. But want to say thank you so much, Oliver. It's been again just a true pleasure, and I told you I'm going to let you know when my second book comes out, so that's going to be fairly soon. Looking forward to hearing what you think about that as well. So, thanks, man. Appreciate everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for allowing me to come on and speak, and I'm excited for your book, man. I'll grab a copy as soon as you send it over.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Appreciate that, Oliver.
Yep.
Talk to you later.